So, by now, most of us have heard about the Emmanuel Clase scandal, the implications, the tarnishment of his career, his legacy, his future, how it affects the Guardians, how it affects fantasy baseball teams, how it affects the trade deadline. What does this do for Major League Baseball as a whole? And that's all well and good, and that's what a lot of people are talking about. But I started thinking, and I was like, Clase, there's something about Clase other than being my fantasy league closer that I have to now make an adjustment on. But there was something about Clase that just stood out in my mind that I couldn't remember what it was. And then all of a sudden it clicked yesterday in my head. He used to have all those commercials on Finlete. I used to get all these ads on my Facebook page, on every other social media outlet that I had on there. I used to get all these ads for invest in Emmanuel Clase's future earnings. When he signs a new contract, you get dividends paid every year as he gets paid. And I thought, whatever happened to that company? What if I had invested in Finlete or whatever it's called? What happens? What happens now? And I thought, there are probably some people that did that. So I went down a rabbit hole. Nobody was really talking about it on YouTube or on anything like that. But I did happen to stumble across an article from just a couple hours ago, actually, that discussed this kind of. And I've read a couple other news stories. So if you're not familiar with this story, we're going to fill you in. And I'm going to give you my best guess at what it is. I did send the company an email to see if they could give me some type of update, not in a social media type platform. I just sent them an email and said, hey, I'm curious what's going on with Clase, with these other prospects that you have on your list and on your able to invest list that are still open. Clase is closed. You can't invest in them anymore. There's another player that was closed also. We'll touch on that. But there's a lot of open AAA, AA players that are on there. What happens with these guys? What happens if they get involved in something like that? So let's see what we can at least come up with amongst ourselves. So listen, you guys know I'm not fancy enough and knowledgeable enough to understand how fair use works and putting all this stuff up and things like that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to scroll the screen behind me and all that stuff. There are really only two. I mean, you guys know I only open baseball cards. That's what I do. I open packs of cards, mainly baseball, sometimes other stuff, but that's what I do. But there were two real articles that kind of pertain to this. One was laying out basically how the whole structure is with the company and that investment goes and how it pertains to Clase in particular in the very beginning stages. And then another one was discussing, actually came out a couple hours ago, discussing how investors may be affected by this, if they will be, how they will be, when they might be. So we're going to kind of just recap it ourselves, and I'll read through the stuff. Got the glasses on so I can see straight, and I'll give you guys my best commentary and explanation and thoughts on this that I can do. So the company started in San Diego, and basically they're a crowdfunding company like crowdfunding.com or GoFundMe, something like that. And they give you the ability to invest in players and their future earnings and their contracts moving forward and currently whatever they're earning. And Clase is about the only one that they have right now in their stable, if you will. That is a major league player. Most of the other guys are all minor leaguers. In fact, all the other guys are all minor leaguers. AAA, AA, single A, high and low both. But this isn't something new that's sports. If you think back a couple of years ago to the Kentucky Derby winner, 2023, Madge, whatever it was, that was a crowdfunded horse. I think that was like Commonwealth Sports or something. And this Newsweek article talks about some of the other vehicles that you can invest in a crowdfunding type philosophy. Horse racing, golf, tennis. There's even some individual players. Like I think there's a linebacker for the Cardinals, or used to be, according to this article. A couple college football players, college basketball players. Major League Baseball is just kind of getting into it and making it started. So if you think back, this was kind of a structure that was designed when Tatis was in the minors. And he did, but that was a private investment, private equity type thing. But he had somebody invest in his career early on for a part of his potential earnings. And that's where this derives from. So this company started with the idea of taking that and taking it a step higher and making it a crowdfunding type of scenario. And that's where we're at. So the question comes down to those people that did invest. They say they have over 450 investors on their site. And Clase, like I said before, was closed. Like that means all his shares were sold, which the initial investment, I believe, on that was $386 to get in. Some of these newer players, some of the minor leaguers and stuff, it's $300. And again, I am not recommending this to anybody. This is not an investment advice or anything. I'm just giving you the scenario of what this is. So the initial investment, Clase is already sold and gone as far as that's concerned. But this company started to give the average fan something to invest in a player, something like DraftKings. When you pick your team, you're invested. Whether it be financially or just personally, you're invested in what that player does. When you collect cards, when you've got a Topps rookie card or a Bowman first of that player, you're part of you's invested in that player and what they do in the future of their success. And this is just another leg of that, another aspect of that, of you making a dividend and a payout of what their future earnings are going to be, or current earnings if they're already in the majors. You're basically fronting them some money to get something on the back end. Again, not investment advice. I am not recommending this to anybody. I'm just telling you what it is. So for most of these players, the way it's structured is you get them some money now, make your investment, and you get them some money now to help them out with their equipment, their training, their facilities, whatever they need, stuff like that. And that money on the back end, when they sign a big contract or a huge deal, they're going to give you back some dividends, and you're going to start making money on it. Obviously, Clase, this was not the situation. He was already an established player. He didn't really need any money other than maybe to make some bets on. I don't know. But he didn't really need the money. But these other players, that's kind of the pitch for that, is say, hey, we're going to give 70% of the money to the player now. We're going to keep 20% for our company, the Finlete or whatever it's called. And we're going to give 10% to our partners for the brokerage houses, if that's what they use, and the portal company that helps you be able to invest in these players. Again, I'm not recommending this. Do not do it. But this is how the structure is for that. So 70, 20, 10, basically how it boils down. And, they had said initially, I know the co-founder, Max Eisenberg, according to this Newsweek, that's his name. He had said that if you're investing in Emmanuel Clase, there are going to be dividends. Okay. So what about now? Like, this was the first year that this was supposed to start, that you were supposed to start getting dividends. And that's what we're going to look into. We're going to see, hey, what happens now? And this other article kind of touches on that we're going to skip over to. But they said, hey, you're going to get dividends. So do we take their word for it? What do we do? Okay, so I'm already laughing about this, and I don't know if this is some trolling or something, or what it is, but I like to cite the name of the article and the person that wrote it. And I'm not that I've ever done this before, but I would like to do that and at least give somebody credit. But I don't know if this is trolling or if this is an actual thing. But this article is written by Front Office Sports, I believe is the name of the organization that wrote it. It's called Emmanuel Clase's Gambling Leave Not Costing Finlete Investors Yet. Now, this is where I don't know what's going on. The author of this article, it's Ben, our friend Ben Horny. Ben Horny. I feel you. I've been there too. Anyway, as the title would imply, the article goes on to say that the investors that were invested in Clase, which the article says is about $315,000 was initially invested in Clase. But they're saying the investors that invested in Clase are not losing any money on the deal just yet. And that since he's still being paid his Major League Baseball salary, albeit he might not quite make as much with bonuses and incentives and things like that are now taken off the plate. And there may be some fines and stuff like that I don't know how that counts in the overall scheme of things. But they're saying those people are going to keep earning dividends off of the $315,000 invested based on just him getting his major league salary, because he's just on administrative leave or non-administrative leave or whatever it's called. Non-disciplinary paid leave. It said it there in the article. But as long as he's on that, he's still going to be getting paid. So Finlete is still going to be getting their portion of the money, and they're still going to be paying out the dividends. That could change if it turns into a bigger scandal or ends up in like a Pete Rose type situation where he's gone for good. But the way things have been kind of progressing over the years, that really doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But it's a possibility. So the article kind of goes on to discuss, some of the upcoming contracts and possible extensions. I mean, they got team options, and in 2027 and 2028, the team has options to pick him up for $10 million a year. Are they going to exercise that? Are they going to be more cautious with him? What about the trade deadline this year? He was, considered to be a big trade piece if the Guardians wanted to deal him and try to get something else in return, and he might have gone to a Yankees or a Dodgers or a team that needed, a bigger arm and would have paid him more money. And so that part of it, although it may not be hurting investors now, it may be hurting them in the future. Whether it be a lower contract because teams are concerned with him, and he's going to miss a month here, and some of these bigger teams might stay away from him. I know the Dodgers are probably going to shy away from him after trying to get themselves far away from the whole Ohtani deal, and they don't want to add somebody that's just going to add fuel to the fire, or someone that's going to be sitting at the blackjack table with him. So, but Ben Horney. Ben Horney goes on to talk about some of the other type of style of investing in players that's gone on over the years with this. I discussed kind of the Tatis thing, but there's been situations where it was like Vernon Davis and EJ Manuel kind of try to do something similar to this with a company, and people invested a lot of money and, hoping to get some money into EJ Manuel, and that company ended up going belly up. Spencer Dinwiddie tried to do something kind of like this with a Bitcoin type of venture, and that just didn't really go too well with the whole pandemic type thing and stuff like that. So this is just another one of those attempts to get fans involved with players and players' careers, and it hasn't been the blueprint for success, but at the same time, you take that horse racing example that I gave you earlier, that had some success to it. I don't know how much those investors got paid out on each one of that. Probably something interesting for me to look into, but you just never know. And the other aspect of this that I didn't really touch on or discuss is where does this put the other 6 or so players that they have in their stable there? Where do they stand? How does this affect them? It's going to make people that might have invested in them a little more leery to do something like this, because what happens if it's one of these other players? What happens if it's someone that doesn't have a big contract yet? Where does that put them? Where do they stand now that they have this contract with this company to promote that company, to try to bring investors in, and now the company doesn't know where they stand with Clase? They may. They're just I just didn't see anything on how they're sharing it. But where does it leave these other players that are on there? And then how does the approach to, if you wanted to invest in them, again, don't, I'm not saying do it. If you wanted to, where do you stand moving forward? It was another situation like this were to occur, and if it wasn't a Major League All-Star. This was not my typical video. This is not the stuff I normally do. I told you guys earlier, I just open some cards. I make some fun videos. I have a good time. But this was something that really interested me, and I wanted to figure out for myself. I figured I'd share with you guys what I found in case anyone else had the same question. I doubt anybody wanted to go down the same rabbit hole that I decided to go down, but I had fun doing it, and I at least got some questions answered for myself. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video as well. I've got some new stuff coming out. I was actually editing another video for the Clingstones game that I went to the other night, and I got done editing. I was going to post that, but then I got on this tangent and off I've been. So we'll get that Clingstones video out soon. I was excited to do the Clingstones game. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Leave some comments down there. Let me know what you think. Like the video if you liked it. You can subscribe over here somewhere, and you can, watch the next video over here. Thank you guys for watching. Not costing Finlete investors yet. Written by. Oh my God.